Hey, how you doing? Welcome to another exciting and wonderful episode of Hibachi Talk. This is Gordo the Tech Czar. Nice to see you. I'm back in the studio today from his adventures on the mainland is Andrew, the security guy. Nice to see you, buddy.
Good to be back, brother.
Welcome
Thank
home.
you.
I tell you, you got a tough act to follow with Kelly last week. He was challenging you, man.
He's probably better at this than me, I'm sure. You know, I was with him last night, and he said he had fun, so I don't know. He's bucking for my
He's
chair.
bucking for your spot.
I got to
So
stay
that's
in town for more often.
Keeps the edge up.
Yeah.
Keeps the edge up. Wait till I'm gone in May, and then you're on your own.
Then we'll see if you get your seat back at all.
Yeah. Anyway, as usual, we haven't seen each other for a while, so now the banter starts from the get-go. Anyway, today's going to be an interesting show. We've got Brian Malecek coming in from Envision. He's been around for a long time in the telecom industry, and he's going to talk about how it's evolved over the years and where we are today and what he might see happening in the future.
Awesome.
Great story from him. And then we're going to talk about your trip, significant about your trip.
Okay.
And what happened there. Angus is up to his usual shenanigans, and he's going to be here and such. But anyway, as I said before, just grab a towel, grab a chair, sit down, and join us and eavesdrop on this conversation for the next 45 minutes or so. So, where were you? I mean, you didn't keep it. I'm hurt. You didn't keep in touch.
I know,
Good
and
thing I'm not
I was
your
supposed
wife.
to
I'd be
Skype
like
in
all
last
over you.
week, and I feel bad. Since my wife is our co-founder, she was working. We had an opportunity to be in this Power CEO event, and it conflicted with our Skype event here. So I was like, I kind of had to work, and this is work, but it's fun, and so she had to put me I was in the barrel.
You're in the barrel.
I had to work.
I was just lonely and heart-struck because
You and Kelly, I would have come
yeah.
in, and I could have saved the show.
Yeah,
and I heard it was great anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, so where were you actually?
So
Were
started off, with Milestone. Milestone's a VMS manufacturer. They have about 10% of the global market, which is the most of any of these video management system guys, right?
Oh, so the security video management stuff.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't maybe have access to that video only. So video management tools. These guys are amazing group. They had about 60 of their integration partners there at the site. And it really reminded me of back in another one of the great manufacturers was Linnell back in like 2000 when they were new on the scene and had a great software platform, very open, and a lot of development going on.
So what are we talking about? What is it? Is it just camera systems, or is it intellectual camera systems? Is it analytics? What are we talking here?
So Milestone's built a platform. They pride themselves on their openness. You can very quickly build apps that'll run on it. You can do APIs for it. They've got an SDK that they give you away freely. And there's
Systems developer kit?
Yes, systems developer kit. And so they really have a very open and easy architecture to develop to. And what it's allowed many of their partners to do is to build very powerful little pieces that you can just bolt on. That run you can opt for the seamless integration where it's really a part of the whole experience, or you can run it as a window that pops up.
So give me an example. I mean, when I see a camera, I see record, play back the recording. Sure. That's it.
Right. So cameras today we really tend to talk about them so much more as sensors, and the sensor technology allows us to do many more things. Analog video was just a actual reflection of what was occurring out there.
Right.
But digital video are pixels. So those pixels can be harnessed to pull information, extract information from them.
So each little dot that's on that camera is picking up, that pixel can be analyzed.
Exactly. And then things can be garnered from that. Data can be pulled from it. Each one of those is a sensor. And so the analytics guys are obviously taking that and doing things with motion, doing things with comparative size. All kinds of analytics are evolving today to add value to that sensor that's sitting there. Everyone understands going back and looking at your video after something happened, right? And so this is 99% of the use case. Right. But the analytics market is really evolving to the point where we can determine what of interest to us in a field of view. Perhaps I don't mind people, but if there's a vehicle enters the field of view, that's large enough that I want to know about it. Maybe vehicles I don't care, but a truck of a certain size, because maybe it could haul something off that I value. So,
like your ATM machine.
I like your ATM machine.
And which has happened.
Exactly. So you can ignore the Prius, but not the pickup truck, right?
Right.
Exactly. And so the ability to take that sensor and differentiate what's going on in it, actually gather information from that sensor and use that information is one big piece of it.
So okay, so I'm starting to get it, and since the Boston Marathon bombing trial is just starting and kicking in. Video was an important part in helping to capture those
Crowdsourced video
it was
for the
crowdsourced
first
video.
time, sure.
But this was I'll call it amateur video because it wasn't video from the first responders on the street. It was random video from the stores that were in the location.
Storefronts, and then video clips from people who were just using their phone to film things and looking at the background.
Around it. So, but if we were to have, and this is like 1984 or 2084 if you want to call it now.
Okay.
So you're telling me that there could be cameras on the street, they're analyzing what's happening on a particular sidewalk, and if there was a bag that was sitting there, had been there for over a certain period of time, they could take some appropriate action because it's not, or be alerted because it's not fitting within the norm?
Sure, and that's an airport application. Object left behind is a big thing in airports, so
Okay.
it's kind of an analytic that's been out there a while. It initially began that you had to mark that object and say, okay, if that's still there in 2 minutes, let me know about it. But today it's evolved a little further where it knows the scene and what's moving in the scene, and if something new appears and then doesn't move for a period of time, the analytics have evolved now to start to alert. And you set these parameters up, and you also set the size of this item up. You may not care if someone leaves this pen on top of a garbage can, for example, or on a seat of in the airport, what do you call it, the terminal,
Yeah,
right? But you may care if it's something this size. So that ability to discriminate what's going on in that field of view makes this a much more powerful application and usable, right? Because we used to get a lot of false alarms in the analytics world. So.
But isn't it super invasive? I mean, you're really talking a very invasive technologies that can really start.
Oh, I think if you're a bad guy, you should be worried. I think if you're not, then you really don't have
care,
too much
right?
to worry about.
Why would you even care? But there are a number of legal organizations around Honolulu that every time when I was with the city, we tried to put up a security camera. They would come down and give testimony as to why we should not be allowed to put in cameras.
And now they're begging for them.
No, they're not. They're still not begging for them. They're still, they only wish. Now, in Chicago is a good example where they put cameras in.
Sure.
And these cameras were smart enough to detect gunshots.
Well, that's
over a backfire.
Shot spotter. Yeah, that's not so much a camera, but a technology.
A technology. And then when they put them in to pilot them, when they went to take them out, the neighborhoods went crazy because the crime went down and the criminals moved into another area.
Yeah.
And then they do is then they'd move the cameras in as a pilot into the other area, and guess what? They would get disputes about putting them in. It's only going to be a month. After a month, they were saying you can't take them out.
Right.
And so they just continued to grow.
And that's the trend. I mean, this technology and those audio analytics are what those are called, and we've got them today for crowd, like people fight. You can actually, people fighting is a different sound than normal sound, like in a parking lot.
Okay.
So you can take your intercom, like I have on my building, and I can run analytics through it for gunshot detection. Actually, you can detect people running versus people walking in an area where running's not normal. You don't want to put it near the track, obviously. People run there.
You could if the guy wasn't running.
Well, so the coach comes on, tells him to start running.
Yeah.
It's you have to apply the detector where you need it.
Okay.
And all of these sensors, all of these sensor partners anyway that we had at Milestone are like this. They're really on the forefront of developing, because everyone wants to make these sensors smarter. You've read that the IoT and 40 billion devices online in about 2020 or whatever we're going to have. Cameras are considered to be one of those that's going to be a major sensor out there because there's so many things we can do with it.
And the sizes are so varied now.
Oh yeah, they're look at your phone. Your camera on your phone's 10 megapixel, right?
It's there.
And it doesn't have some of the power of these type of cameras we're talking about.
So at Milestone, what are some of the applications that people were looking at creating?
So
that you'd find really innovative.
Yeah. So for me, I'm a access control guy, right? I want the perimeters locked. Cameras to me are not often used properly. So when people depend on them for security and they're not getting any security, all they do is get to see who robbed them after the fact, right? And I don't like that. So I like the perimeter protected. And the one thing that Milestone does, they've got a lot of partners. They've written what's called an ACM, an access control module. And in the world where you and I kind of come from, we drive from the access control monitoring screen. I want to know the positions of my doors. I want to know the movement of my people.
Right,
I want to
right.
know what's secure and what's not out there physically. Doors are closed or open or someone's trying to get in or whatever. And then I maybe use video to confirm that, to look at that if that event is important to me. What they're doing, they've got this video app, VMS that they've got, but they pull in this ACM, this access control module that they built that pulls all those alarms in from almost any access control manufacturer. So it's a really unique driving experience from my perspective for monitoring your facility because it's sort of video first.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so we've changed it now from
Yeah.
the badge to the key to the camera is now your mechanism to control access.
Well, I just think it's I think people just want to see video, and my experience is that
I
once
know we can
deploy-
tell by the massive number of viewer we have watching this program.
That's is it? I heard it's like N+1 now.
Yeah, yeah.
We have one, we have two.
Yeah.
But the
I love throwing you off.
so
That's what you get for studying anthropology. Anyway, so
Thank
go. So
so
coming
MIPS
back,
was fun.
So that was number one.
Number one. So and amazing.
and
So then we hopped on a plane. We flew down to Tampa. Tampa has the National Systems Contractor Association event going on, and they have a business leadership conference.
Okay.
So this is all of the low voltage contractors in the country, security guys, smart screen guys, audio guys,
Cable pullers?
all those guys. Yeah, they all do that. Not so much electricians.
Yeah, I'm just being a smart ass.
But
Oh, can I say that
we
on
all
TV?
have that, and so a lot of the cable companies there, a lot of the guys that rig stuff, the rigging like we have in our studio here, those guys are there. So really interesting group, but it's a leadership focused conference. So
How many ponytails?
the speakers, amazing. I'm going to talk about that on the security minute.
Okay.
So the
Well, you know what? Let's do that. Give us the security minute.
security minute
Yeah,
now.
Now, yeah.
All right. Here's my security minute. I've just come from 3 major conferences in the United States, 3 that come from 3 different areas of our industry. And it was amazing that at all 3 conferences, everyone there that was managing the conference, that was putting it on, noticed the percentage of women in the audience. And they made a special point to have them stand up. There were counts done, and all of them were approaching in the high 20s to 30% attendance, which was like double or triple what they had ever previously had. So my security minute today, because we've talked about this on this show, the women who are out there in the community have got to engage technology now and get involved in our industry. The doors are wide open. A woman runs my firm. She's my wife. I mean, women are running things. We need your intelligence. We need your guidance. We need your assistance and support out there in this industry. And that was the message that went out in every conference, including one I attended last night here in Hawaii when I got back, the business boot camp. And that same call went out from that group there that, the doors are wide open for you. So if you felt there's barriers, if you felt it's been difficult to deal with the men in the technology world, it's time to just take over and push them aside, because you're doing a great job out there from everything I saw.
Yep. Very, very true. Very true. And as a matter of fact, the technicians that are running this show are female.
Oh yeah, we're in an all-female studio. That's the only reason it works.
Yes, exactly. But we know how to suck up to the women, don't we?
Wow, it's true. I can't run all that gear.
I know. Well, anyway, so speaking of sucking up,
time for the loo?
I've been put a few of those in already, so it's time to take that wander down to the loo, and then we'll go grab Angus off the beach, get him up away from those ladies over there. And
We'll be back with Angus.
Back with Angus.
I got a gift for him.
We'll see you in a minute.
Aloha, Yappers, and a Happy New Year. I'm your host, King Zilly. From inner city out to the platform and now on the Yap Show. It's a new year, and most would say a new beginning. So this is a call to action. As we promote tech, energy, diversification, and globalism, with ThinkTech Hawaii, the Yap Show is all about advocacy for effective leadership, comprehensive youth policies, programs, and access to knowledge and information for upward social mobility, especially for the historically underprivileged youth. This means we'll be looking at young people making a difference in their community. Youth policies here in Hawaii, the country, and the world. We want to highlight youth programs that are meeting young people where they are, working together to accomplish a goal or tackle an issue by providing information and access to free educational content for anybody looking to learn on their own time, study for an exam, or simply refresh their memory. We do this by inviting everyday people like yourself, state policymakers, youth advocacy groups, youth programs, professionals, and so forth. But most importantly, we'll be partnering up with my new organization, causeeffect.org. More information on Cause Effect, as this website is currently in development in hopes to feature courses, seminars, tutorials, and conducting surveys that will be featured on the show. As we leave behind 2014, I wish I could say we leave behind issues such as police brutality, youth violence, education, economic mobility, and so many other hot-button topics that made 2014 a difficult year. So what does it mean for the new year? What does it mean for youth policy? What does it mean for Hawaii as a whole? And most importantly, how does it affect you and your community? We want you to tune into the YAP show at 3 p.m. Friday and find out. Aloha.
Aloha, I'm Kili'i Akina, president of the Grassroots Institute and host on Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii broadcast network. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Ehana Kako. Every week we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to ThinkTech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We're Ehana Kako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
Hi, my name is Sachiko Slomov. I'm the floor manager of ThinkTech Hawaii here. You can join us on the air every weekday from 1 to 5 or off the air at thinktechhawaii.com. We stream all of our videos and all of our amazing shows at thinktechhawaii.com or on our Ustream channel. You can also check us out on Twitter at ThinkTechHI or Instagram at ThinkTechHI also. I'll be listening and I hope to see you there. Thanks.
So we're back with Angus McTech. Welcome back to Hibachi Talk. Angus, what do you got for us this week, brother? Good to see you again.
How you doing there, Drew?
Yeah, all
nice
right.
to see ya.
All right, man.
What do you think of my wee horns?
I like that. What's your mission this week?
Well, we're going to talk about another wee lass that I met.
Oh.
Her name is Cortana. She's a real sweetie. You know me and the ladies. Oh, look at it. There she is. Oh my goodness! I just swoon when I see her. Just a wee. Oh, my
Another
goodness.
social website?
How would you like to deal with her all day long? I gotta tell you what. Windows 10. We talked about this. Windows 10 is coming out in end of the year, and in Windows 10 there's a new browser, and it's the reason for the hat is. It's called Spartan. You remember Spartan?
The
I like a
Spartan browser, yes.
in there. So it's the reason is for the Spartan tag name that they have for Windows 10, the new browser. But the new browser has Cortana integrated into it. So if you're, for example, if you're at a website and you wanted to, say you're at a restaurant website, and I'm looking at this restaurant website, and I want to know the location. I can see the little Cortana up in the corner of the taskbar. And what I do is I just click on it, and up she comes, and she tells me where the restaurant is. I never have to leave the page.
I see.
Right there.
So that's why you've been spending so much time with her.
She's right there. I just love it.
Gotcha.
And then the other thing is, too, if I just type in the word weather, I get the weather. So I know whether to have to wear my raincoat or just heading on down the road without my raincoat because the weather comes right up. Because a little Cortana, she's helping me all the way. So you can just ask Cortana all these really cool things. And then the real neat thing is that this is only the beginning. There's going to be more of her in the future when it comes out at the end of the year. So that's it. Look forward to more Cortana. And back to you and aloha.
Wait, before you go, I brought you a little something, brother.
Oh, Andrew, a gift. Oh, I'm so love it. Oh, thank you. All right, see you, bye.
Easy. All right, so we're back. Brian Malecek's in the studio with us today from Envision Technology, Envision Network Services. Network Solutions? How many? I get confused because it jumped around for a while. So.
It is Envision Network Solutions, and it's all in the name.
Right on. Very well. And so that's it. So we're going to talk about telecommunications today. Brian is a veteran of the industry. He was at a show with me last night, and the how long have you been in business went only to 20 years. He goes, don't they have a 40-year category? I remember you saying that, so we're here with the experience as always on Hibachi Talk. So welcome, Brian. Glad to have you, brother.
Thanks, guys. I got to say that I really enjoyed Gordon's intro to me because, as he said, he's been in a long time. His eyes rolled.
Well, it is. What is it with you guys and the glasses on the top of the head?
I forget when I need to.
It's right out here.
Just like, it's like.
If I need to see something, I got to use them. I mean, I'm blind over here.
I'm looking, it's like, this is.
It's not Google Glass, though.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, Gordon, you got us beat.
I'm going to check our Twitter feed to see if
Right.
anybody's coming in.
So, we typically start out with, asking our guests how they got into the tech industry and where they're from and so on. And I know you have a very interesting and exciting background. So, tell us about the beginning. How did you get into this wonderful
Very
world
beginning.
of telecom?
Where'd you go to school? Where are you from?
And I bet it was rotary phones. It was like these kinds of things. So,
All right, look, I may be losing a lot of hair, but I'm not quite that old. However, I started back when I was 19. I had an opportunity to move out to Silicon Valley right out of 2 years of college, and that's actually as far as I got in college. So
Wow.
to admit to folks out there that you really need a big education, that's not always the case.
oh, ask Bill Gates.
I'm not going to discourage that. Everybody should go for it. But you know what? I was really lucky. And I had a friend that had moved into San Jose area, and he started up a company. Back then they called it Interconnect because we literally interconnected with the Ma Bell, network.
The old,
big,
before
they broke them into baby bells.
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That process was underway, but we were able to get in on a head start. So that was basically how I got into it, and the technology's morphed, so many years. But starting working for a Bell operating company, then going into a high-tech company like Rome Corporation, which you're very familiar
Remember Rome?
with.
Yep.
We can talk about that in a little bit. But from there, as a software development, I got to go into some startup companies, and next thing I know, I found myself in Hawaii.
Yeah. So,
So were you reselling like the software that you guys learned? Were you like in engineering at that point, or helping deployment, or what were you?
Actually, my knowledge base came from training with the Bell operating companies. And when I went to work with the Rome Corporation, I was basically a technician for Bell that they noticed understood trunking. And no one, they said, we got guys from MIT, Davis, all this. Nobody understands trunking. Could you come work in our department?
So what is trunking? So just,
Now we get to
okay.
discuss.
So,
Hey,
perfect
it's
segue.
not an elephant.
Trunking is the way that these private systems are networked into the public networks
So your
from a
private
voice
phone
communication
system.
standpoint. Correct.
So if I'm a big company like Boeing or whatever, and I have this big phone system that's running my company, how I connect that to the main
telephone
company.
network, right? What we
got
call
it.
the public switch telephone network,
Okay.
PSTN.
Okay.
And so trunking in the old days was a very analog and complex method of signaling that allowed this data to transfer in a way that the CO, the central office, understood what number you were dialing and make those
Okay.
calls. So it started with rotary dial, a whole bunch of series of peaks and valleys
Right.
in a network connection that they translated into a number. And then it turned into touch tone, which was dual tone multi-frequency, DTMF.
Okay.
A lot of the technology that were behind that, you can go trace this all the way back to Morse code. Because that's basically what it was, a coding
That's
sequence.
right. It was Morse code. That's right.
It wasn't Morse code, but
it was like
it's
it.
like
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So essentially, the central office then understood who you were trying to connect to, and they made the connections. And back then, connections were simple. It was just voice. Now, today, trunking has migrated into a completely IP environment, where we call SIP trunks, IP trunking.
Right.
Comes in a couple of flavors. There's SIP standard, and then you have all your manufacturers from the legacy world that has evolved into soft switching and IP, voice over IP solutions.
And all the stuff we've got today.
And those SIP trunks can be proprietary. In other words, they can pass, it's IP trunking, but it's not necessarily the SIP standard. And that way they can enhance their products and do more things with it and get some proprietariness out of it.
So you've done this massive leap here. You've just taken us from Alexander Graham Bell all the way up to.
God, I did, didn't I?
He took us from analog trunking to digital trunking
5
a little
minutes.
too
But
quick.
I want to get back. You said you turned around, all of a sudden you were in Hawaii, but you weren't just like all of a sudden in Hawaii.
Yeah,
So-
I got a question here that
how did
came
you-
in. They want to know how long
you
you've been
haven't-
here and how'd you get here.
Yeah, you
Because
have
we know how he got here.
We have an interesting.
All right.
You have an interesting story on how you got to Hawaii.
All right. Well, it is a 5 martini discussion. I'll just cut to the chase. Basically, in my time with the Rome Corporation back in the Valley, they had me in an international role where I was traveling all around the world, actually, putting in these systems and beta trying software. And so I didn't really need much of a place to live, so I had a boat. So I lived on my boat in the Bay Area, and that was
Wow.
a wonderful experience. I did that for about 4.5 years there.
I
had
get seasick looking at a boat.
And that was when was this? 1951, 1961?
It was great. I was living the life, I mean, I
Nice.
was just like here on the beach, how can you beat this? Yeah. But this was actually 79 to 85.
Wow, right on.
So what happened was I ended up having an opportunity that came here, and I told my buddy who was working for a Dr. Kelly company,
Yeah.
and he said, when can you get here? I said, it's going to take 7 weeks. He's like, what? Can't you just give 2 weeks notice? No, I got to get my boat ready and sail over. So that was a whole lifetime.
So you
Wow.
sailed over here.
Yeah, but in '85,
What a
it was
decision,
a
though.
whole
How long
different
did it
world.
take you to sail over? Because there was
There's
no
no
GPS.
Not back then, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I needed
sextant.
7 weeks.
You were a
Because
sextant.
the first thing I did, my wife, well, she wasn't my wife at the time, my significant other, decided we go to the College of Alameda and learn celestial navigation. Now,
Just
everybody
in
in
case.
technology is going to say, what?
No, it's like the whole
But
play here.
that's what we needed to do because, we are tech guys. We know batteries can die, electronics can fail, and at that point in time, they had a satellite system called SatNav, but it was going obsolete. Why would I spend $3,000 on a system that's going obsolete because they're launching all these satellites for GPS?
Right.
So I decided I just needed to learn the old-fashioned
So
way.
you didn't have a sat nav radio? You had no radio?
I had a radio,
Right, but not
a
sat-
ham
but it's
radio.
not
I was
sat
a
nav,
ham
right.
licensed operator.
Okay.
And I would get the WWV time tick out of Colorado,
Uh-huh.
and I would use that with the nautical almanacs and all of my program sheets and stuff to figure out where you are. And it goes back to
Were you any good? Were you any good is the question.
Hey, we got here.
Yeah, but it took you 7 weeks.
By way of
No. It was a 3-week trip. It was a 3-week trip. It took me all the other
That's
time to
pretty
get the
good.
boat ready and get educated.
Okay.
But we did a quick dry run from San Francisco down to Catalina Island.
Oh.
And we used dead reckoning and fixed position shore shots to find out that our sun sites that we were taking, we were shooting the sun, not stars. So
Okay.
contrary to popular belief, sun's always shine, you can always find it. Stars, you really kind of got to know what you're doing to know which star is this, because if you make a mistake, you're going to find yourself in the Philippines, which wouldn't be too bad either, but
Yeah.
So we ended up going all the way down the coast, just mapping our sun sites with the actual fixed positions from lighthouses and land masses. And everything worked really well, and we were really proud of ourselves because, man, we're going now, And then we jumped off from Avalon, and
Yeah, but
18
what
days
happens when
came
you
across.
lose sight of the land? I
Well,
mean,
Did you have any doubt on? I mean, were you pretty comfortable the whole way? Did you have sun and no like?
Well, let me put
multiple-
it this way. After about 2 weeks, Captain Bry turned into Captain Bly.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
So, we end up being in a situation where you start to not doubt yourself, but you get to a situation where things are not happening exactly the way you planned them, and you start questioning it, and then, you're a little more, loss of sleep too, because, you're not really sleeping real good on there. It's not like you can just stop the boat and go to bed.
Right.
You're
Right.
going
Exactly.
24/7 around the clock. You have 3 people that are running these shifts, and, in the end, it all works, but you learn a lot about yourself out there, that's for sure. It is
No
a
kidding.
very self-awareness exercise, or I should say an exercise in self-awareness. Because, there's so many things when you start sleep deprivation, you start looking at, different diets, your exercise habits are different. You come back, your legs are just like totally toned because you're constantly trying to balance yourself on the boat.
Oh, yeah, you got sea legs. You see that?
your
I've
sea
heard that
legs,
term. Yeah.
So it's an interesting self-development, but I think from a technology standpoint, the interesting part is that we went down to the very rudimentary functions in trigonometry that say, how do you find where you are on the Earth? And you know what? The GPS system does the exact same thing. It just does it with digital signals
It does it
and
with
radio
the
waves.
digital signals. So now we come back to, it's a really cool story. It really is a cool story. But like I said, I'll look at the boat, but that's all I'm going to do. I ain't getting on that thing. It wasn't meant to be. It's one of those things I don't believe in. So anyway, so you tell me come back to Telecomm, back when you first started working with Alexander Graham Bell. And so
He was an old guy.
Old guy. And then but remember the Roam? Now the Roam system was a pretty state-of-the-art, innovative piece of technology. In my opinion, it was one of the ones that kind of broke that edge in bringing things in to the combining of voice and data.
Absolutely. Rome was the first telecommunications corporation that actually had a computer-controlled switching matrix.
Wow.
So where all the switches up to that point had electronics behind them, Rome was the first one that had software control, software-defined control. And that gave us huge leaps and bounds over our competition, and why Rome grew so much, and IBM eventually bought it.
Eventually bought
What was it
that.
written in back then?
It was
RPG.
Pascal.
Pascal,
Yeah,
yes.
It was
that
written in
makes sense.
Pascal. It's kind of a special version of it because we had designed our own silicon to have certain processing functions. And back then, the processors, it was a 32-bit processor card, but it was bit sliced into 8-bit processors, right? 4 8-bit processors.
Okay.
Okay, take that. Hold that bit.
4 8-bit processors.
How's that for a
That's a
lead-in?
good bit.
Hold that bit. That's a good bit. So hold that bit, and then we're gonna head over for another short break and pay the bills, and we'll be right back.
Aloha.
Aloha, my name is Paul Jackson, better known as PJ, and my local interest is in sports. I have my own sports radio show at KWAI AM 1080 that you can stream live. I also have my own website, pjsportsradio.com. We have live guests in studio, and we talk about discussions and topics that everyone wants to know locally here on the islands. We cover everything from surfing to basketball to whatever's going on locally, sports-wise. We try to do our best and cover the topics in depth as much as we can. Once again, thank you for joining PJ here on Hawaii Sports Update. Mahalo.
Hi, I'm Jay Fidel. That's Ted Ralston. You know, Ted is the host of Where the Road Leads. It shows every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. It's about technology. It's about how people collaborating and solve problems with modern technology. It's where the road leads. We all know that. We should all be listening. Join us there, 4 to 5 p.m. every Friday. Now, what about that do you agree with?
All of it.
I knew he'd say that. Aloha. Say aloha.
Aloha.
Good.
Well, how you doing? Welcome back to Hibachi Talk. I'm here with Andrew, the security guy, and our good friend Brian Malecek from Envision, and we're talking about the migration of telecommunications from the Alexander Graham Bell days up to where we are today, and also celestial navigation using the sun and all kinds of cool stuff. So, but thank you for being back. But before I get to back to Brian, I want to mention something we mentioned last week. We talked about House bill and Senate bills that are down at the ledge about I like to call it like not allowing you to steal someone's employees, like I stole one of yours. So anyway, the non-compete clause. So the non-compete clause bill is actually moving forward into the ledge, so down through the ledge. So even the big guys out there, and we consider ourselves a big guy, and I'm all for not having these non-competes. I think let the companies prove their strength and what they can do with the employees, and also allow the technology industry to grow. So I'm really hoping that this gets through.
Says from the guy with the top 100 feet on the street.
But now
How many did you hire this week?
Four.
See?
But that makes me a target.
That's why we all partner with him.
That's
You know
true.
what I
It
mean?
goes around.
What goes around. That makes us a target, because now you're going to go, okay, where are we going to go for resources, right? Well, let's go look at Paxa. They got 100. Yeah. So that's
see.
what's going to
People coming after
and that's
the
why
people.
some of the big guys are saying no, they don't want it to happen, because they're going to feel like they're going to be the target and they're going to get poached.
So are they worried about like the hospitality industry as well? Or because that's I mean, it's the biggest
no,
employer,
it's
like-
interesting. The two industries that are fighting it the most is the telecom industry. Guess who? We won't even name names. They're fighting against that happening. The broadcasting industry is the other one that's fighting against it. They don't want the broadcasters to move around as easily. And the ones that I love the best that exempted themselves from the law when it initially got started were the attorneys, the law firms. So it's
They figured out the legalese
The
for
moment
that,
the
did they?
attorneys exempt themselves from something, that means then you don't need that law.
Yeah.
Well, and I got to say that I've been involved in non-competes for my whole career. I was working for startups. I would get stock options. I would have all sorts of different clauses that control those things, and intellectual property is what they're really after.
Right.
But the actual non-compete, where you restrict someone from able to get a job in their field after they leave your employment for some term,
A year?
is always been in question in the courts. And I believe that the courts will always come back to a conclusion that says, look, if that guy's got a mortgage to pay and mouths to feed at home,
Right.
you cannot do this, right? It's the only thing he knows how to do.
But by the time you get through the courts, that 1 year is up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And
That's right.
You've
right.
lost your edge.
That's
right.
right. And you've lost a lot of money trying to fight that whole thing.
Fight that whole
so-
thing.
Yeah,
So-
they shouldn't keep anyone out of an industry. I just think that there should be a thing about attacking. You're taking having customers with you, things like that. You know,
Right.
And I
there's
think
a-
corporate, it's about being a good corporate citizen.
Yeah.
You know, like, yes, you stole one of my guys, but you know what I told that guy? Go. You know, because I cannot give you where you want to go in my business. You need to develop as a person. I love you. You've been a great employee, and you're going to a good company. And so why would I want to hold someone back like that?
Exactly.
You know, I mean,
And guess what? When we ended up doing business with a client down the road where we partnered on, guess who we used as
that's
part
right.
of that contract?
That's right.
Your guy.
And you know, that's what's the beauty about business in Hawaii.
Yeah,
you know,
it's true.
it's a close community and we all work together. And you know, my goal for our company going forward this year was all about one word: collaboration.
Yes.
And that's what we've been doing, and that's been a key to our success for years.
So how big is your company now? You're up to...
We have 45 employees.
45.
We're pushing 50.
And how many of those are engineers?
Oh, roughly a third.
A third of those are engineers. And your company's been around for how long in its various...
The Envision Network Solutions as a legal entity since 2004.
Right.
But the core of our company in telecommunications since the 70s.
Yeah, because yes, when you and I came here in the 70s and you and I started doing
Yeah,
business,
yeah.
which by the way, reminds me, I stole one of your employees back in 1981 also.
Jeez, you guys have a history of this. But there's another thing that's really important.
All he's doing is digging his own ditch because these
Yeah.
are all IOUs.
Sure. Well,
It just dawned on me.
you bring me to something that in all three of these conferences I was at as well, that everyone was really, really big about their partner ecosystem. That is a thing that, because a lot of these companies specialize, a lot of them have a lot of great knowledge, and a lot of them do what they do very, very well, but their client's solution is bigger than them. And you know, you can't be everything to everybody with technology. So having a great partner ecosystem like the three of us sitting here, we know we can take on a client's needs, and if I don't have a piece of it, I call you, it doesn't matter.
Right, and this
we
is-
can deliver.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and Gordon, you know, Andrew and I just did something
Oh, yeah, the one
recently
at,
where we took our labor force and we knew that the project that I had secured was too big for any of us. So we pooled together with him and a couple of other companies, and we were able to get all of the demands met to do 40 buildings between mid-September and December and Christmas, basically, for 1,280 access points wired on Kaneohe Marine Base. 40 buildings. That's infrastructure that included the construction, conduit, all that, right on down to putting the switches in and getting it turned
And
on.
that's what we keep saying, is just got to realize there is such a huge opportunity for ladies and gentlemen in this industry. And you know, the newspaper said this week that we ranked last in tech jobs.
I saw that.
3% of the labor force is
That-
employed in technology. That's I don't agree with
they
that.
don't- they're
I'm
not asking
missing
the
a-
right
You know what?
question.
Because
Yeah.
they're not talking to companies like ours.
Right.
They're thinking of the entrepreneur types, the code developers. They're not talking to the ones that like us
Right.
that do what we're doing.
Or-
Because
and-
between the three of us, we've got 175 people that were in the tech
Right.
industry.
And what are Emily and Zuri doing here? Is this not technology?
Yes, yeah. So I don't
That's
understand. Yeah. So
Did you guys get counted in that poll?
probably not. So, which then also skews the women factor.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
so
that's the other.
that,
part.
I don't know. That I saw that. It was all the papers were piled up when I got home, so I was just whipping through them to
I
see what
know.
I missed, and I was like, 3% is ridiculous.
So let's kind of come back to the telecom stuff. We're going to have you come back on because we just even scratched the surface of where it's
Sure.
going now. So I mean,
So SIP, talk a little bit about SIP. I've run into issues with that, with trying to do some intercom integration. They got their own version of SIP, and
Very
SIP's
good
the
point.
thing everyone uses because it's nice and easy to deal with, but it's not standard all the time.
That's correct.
That was a learning curve for me.
And the thing about SIP is it's a very complicated, I'll say, set of protocols, right? SIP encompasses a lot of different, levels of the technology and the protocols that need to be adhered to make it work correctly. And therein lies some of the interpretation issues that we always run into with standards. When we look at, IEEE and, at the standards-based committees decide on and it's written down, can be led itself to various forms of interpretation. And especially because, there's language barriers. It's written in one mostly English language. And where are these coders and definers coming from? Coders are all over the world,
All over
right?
the world,
And
whether
they're
they
trying to
be-
interpret, and they may not understand the industry. It's
true.
And telephony is a very unique industry. I think one of the challenges that most people think when they try to get into a new business venture and they think that they can be a SIP provider and put hosted phones out there, they don't understand telephony well enough to be able to first understand what they're getting into. Because when people put in telephone systems, their expectations are, I'm going to have dial tone, just like I had in toll grid service all these years. And by the way, I've got security gates I have to open from the touchtone phone. I have IVRs that are operating off it. I've got to integrate into, other
Video
kinds of
conferencing.
automated systems that use touchtone codes. And all of a sudden, a company goes in and gets involved in that and realizes they can't deliver that. They can't deliver that with that technology because there are certain shortcomings or they don't understand it well enough. Their solutions don't integrate enough things. So you have to be very careful with SIP. It's a great technology. It is absolutely where our future is going. But there are still legacy expectations, I'll say.
Right? Like Rome.
Yes, sir. Right. You
Still
were talking
around.
about that. They were the computer control. What do? They had a chassis that could support voice and data through that network, right?
Right.
But it was all proprietary how they did it. Guess what? It worked really well.
Yeah.
But that's because the proprietary nature of technology, when a business takes ownership of that, they are accountable and they make it work. When you get into standards-based things, there are different interpretations and different things that play into that where all of a sudden there's gaps in the solutions because they haven't really addressed it completely.
Right. Yeah, and so it's taking us to where we've come today, and again, how we've been able to collaborate on projects. The one we did recently for St. Francis Medical Center, the skilled nursing facility that they're building up there. We integrated data, a voice system that ran on VMware, right, and a nurse call system. All integrated into one solution set. So that's where it's going.
All based around a soft switch. There was no appliance that represented the PBX. It was an image on VMware, and then there were periphery that attached to it for gateways to the public switch telephone network, gateways to analog services to run patient bed phones, because you don't really need SIP phone there.
Right.
The other thing about SIP phones too is understand there's two parts components to the pricing, and this is what a lot of people say. They look online, they see a SIP phone for $110. They buy it, they think they can hook up their phone system. You need a license for that.
Yep,
Yes,
you gotta have
that's
a
right.
license.
So
Ain't nobody giving it away.
it's just like Microsoft trying to,
How do you make money?
Yeah, trying to
And
manage
how do you
pals.
support it long term? I mean, you gotta make money, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about really getting a good understanding of that technology and working with your vendors because, I don't want to say Father knows best, but they have the experience and they understand what the challenges are.
Right.
And it's frustrating for me when I see a client tell me this is what I want to buy and this is what I'm going to do, and I look at it, I'm like, oh no, this is going to be a problem. I don't know that I can support that. Well, why? You're my vendor. Well, because I wouldn't recommend that solution. I have other ideas about this that, and I think that sense, IT groups working for larger corporations need to really start to listen because more than likely they don't have the experiences necessary in that particular field to make things work.
Yeah, and I've seen that
be
over
successful.
for sure.
And my goal as a
SIP is-
business,
and SIP
my
is-
goal is to make my customer, who I'm working with, look good,
Right.
meet their goals and objectives, and make it work.
Yeah, and if IT guys haven't touched telecom, which my group really hadn't, and they see SIP, they saw protocol, they think standard, and they learned that that's not that way. There are absolute differences.
Right.
between-
Mitel has their own version of their IP telephony, call it a proprietary SIP. It's same with NEC, same with, I mean, every Cisco, Avaya, they
Cisco,
all
Avaya,
have that,
sure.
but they all meet a standard. And quite frankly, guess what? They have two different licenses.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if you want to put that Polycom phone that's a SIP standard on this Avaya system, you'll need a different license than what you
Exactly.
need for that Avaya phone that's on that
And
system.
try explaining
Exactly.
that to the client.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so complicated.
Yeah, so they typically structure it so that if you're using their devices, it's one license or a cheaper license, whereas if you're trying to bring on or merge technologies in, it's going to cost you a little more because they got to support it. So,
Right.
it's understandable.
All
but
these manufacturers have
customers
moved-
don't get that all the time, right? Your client's
Right.
like, what? That's 100 and that's 200? Like it's double. What do you mean? And they get.
In the telecom industry, all the manufacturers that were of the legacy world have migrated into this software-based model, and so they've moved from a hardware revenue generating
Right.
model to a software, and so that has been. Everybody has a different idea how to do that and how to do their pricing, and what that's led to is some companies with such complex licensing that they actually have a server called a license manager. I think you probably run into
Yep,
these.
thank you.
And so the license manager
I thought we were
is
the only
something
industry
the
dime on that.
They want the customer to pay for just to manage their complexity. I don't get that. They want, well, in this multi-system environment, you need a license manager, and you want the customer to pay for that? That's not their problem.
Yeah, that's
I don't
right.
quite get that mentality.
Yeah,
so
and there's a good book out there called Consumption Economics.
economics, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, you gave that book to me.
Yeah,
by
I
the way.
did. I gave you something for those employees. I mean, so Anyway, so consumption.
Good thing I'm not the mafia.
I know, good thing. Good thing I still got my arms. Anyway, you're not gonna believe this, but we've actually burned through another lunch hour. We've literally burned through another lunch hour.
Brian's got to come back. We got to get more out of him.
back on,
I'd love to, you guys.
yeah,
Yay.
it'd be nice. So anyway, I want to let you know that we're going to give you the ever famous. It's got a libation in it right now. Autographed solo cup.
He's
And
drinking out of his
no,
autograph
no
cup.
guest.
Good. That's
no,
good. That's
no
cool.
guest.
And
leaves.
shameless plug for Envision.
Yay.
Yeah, good. There you go. Thank you. There's
Nice.
Well, I told you. Where's your logo wear anyway?
Well, you know, yeah, it was dirty.
At least you didn't wear a green shirt. So anyway, we burned through another 45 minutes with obviously people that we've never met before. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank Angus for his usual nonsense. And I want to thank Andrew and Brian for providing me with all these great employees. and look forward to seeing you guys again. Again, have a great rest of the week. And how you doing?
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha.